Hey everyone, Ken with Goldstrike here, and today I'm going to show you how to install the saddlebag side lights. These lights replace the reflector on the bottom of the sides of your saddlebags on your 2018 and up Goldwing. First thing we want to do is remove the seat, and these also are going to require our 48,000 rear lighting harness. And so if you need a video or don't need to know how to take off your seat or more about that wiring harness, go ahead and check those out. We'll put links below. So let me get started. All right, first thing we need to do is separate the outer shell from the inner shell. This inner shell actually stays on the bike, and there's like 15 different screws that we've got to take out to accomplish this. But to start out, so we can access them all, we're going to pop off this, and we're going to take this screw out, and then we want to be careful. I'll show you here in a second. So to pop this off, the shock absorber here, put a screwdriver down there and just this will tend to want to fling go out far, so just going to be careful with it. You don't need to take it all the way off. And this one here is just a simple screw. I like to support the bag as you're doing it. And you can just set that aside in there. These are handy to help with the amount of screws that we have. So now this will drop down and it'll stop, but you don't want to press down on it because you could break the hinges. So this is where you just want to be a little bit careful as we take out the rest of these screws. So let me get started. Now I'm going to move up here, take these two hinge pieces off. These are of course going to go back in. And then I like to do this screw up here last because it kind of holds everything together. So we're going to pop up the rest of here. And some of them, if you can't get to them, just go with a regular Phillips screwdriver. You'll be able to get in there and get them out. All right, and now we're going to take out the last one. And this still isn't going to fall because it's a snap fit, but I like to support it anyway. And take out this last screw here. Now, I think we've got them all. Just double check. Yep, and now we're going to take this off of the inner, take the outer off of the inner. As you can see, it starts to move. So I'm going to pull this out like this and carefully just kind of hold on to it, like so. And we're going to put this off to the side and drill the holes for the wires. Okay. We need to remove this reflector right here, and in order to do that, we're going to separate the outer shell here, that's the shiny part, from the plastic lower part. As you'll notice on this one, we also have our other saddlebag light on here. We have another whole video about this one if you're interested in it. It shows you how to do it, but for right now, I'm just going to ignore it because the installation is the same whether you have this light or not. So what we want to do, on the back side of here, you have these little clips in here. And these little, you can see where the little screw bosses come through. Those need to be pried out. This kind of feels violent. You're going to feel like you're breaking something, but you won't. So basically you just start at one end. And then I start the other end. And you can see how these kind of pop through the hole there. Go. Once we got them started here, and it just pops like that. Like I said, it's violent, but anyway, that's what you need to know. So the next part here is you've got your reflector, and on the back side there's an 8mm nut, and we're going to reuse that. So we're going to take that off. And there's a washer with it. So these two pieces here you're going to reuse. So set those aside, don't lose them, because that's important. And then the reflector just simply pops off. On some models like this one, you're going to have a little tape on the back side, just like that. You just want to make sure you pull that off too. All right, we can set this off to the side. We're not going to use it again. And now we got to drill the holes. So let me show you how that works. So we want to use this hole right here. This is the locating hole on the back of the for the location of the back of the reflector, and we're going to drill this hole out to 5/8. I like to use these step drills. You can get them in any hardware store. They work really well. And I've marked out with a mark right here showing where I need to stop. So with that, I'll put a little block of wood under me so I don't drill into my bench, but here we go. Come around the back side here. You want to make sure you don't have any sharp edges. So trim it out. And then what you want to do is you get your light right here, and you want to make sure that you've drilled it big enough that the connector will fit through the hole. And as you can see, it does. So now we can install the light. So as you see, you have this stud that comes out here that goes through the original hole right here that the reflector did that you took off. And then this piece here has a little raised area right here, and this fits through this hole. So you want to make sure that that all fits in there nice and snug. Just pull it through. So on the back side now you can see where these go through. You want that to go through there, and you want to snap that into that hole like there. Make sure that that's going through there just well. And then we're going to reinstall our washer and our 8mm nut. And you just snug it down so it's snug. You don't have to, we're not launching the space shuttle off of this right here. Just snug that down. This is a locking washer. It will not back out. Make sure your wires are coming through right here and that this little boss is in that hole, just like that. Now the next thing we got to do is drill a hole in the outer shell. So I'm going to set this aside and move this so you can see it. So this little divot right here, we're going to drill this out to the same size we drilled that one, so 5/8. So make sure you get her in the center there and get a nice hole started. Flip that over, get the back side. You can see sometimes you'll have a situation where as you're drilling it kind of melts that plastic, so going from the back side assures that you get the right size hole. That ought to get us there. I'm going to trim the front side again. So now it's nice and round, the edges of the hole won't cut the wire, and that's all we're looking for. So just make sure, and if you're not using one of these, just go around with a file or a knife and just make sure there's no sharp edges where the wire goes through. So now we've got this all attached. We'll flip this over here. We're gonna run this wire. Also, it goes through the outer, now we're gonna run it through the inner panel here, just like that. Pull it right through. And now we're going to do the slightly violent reattachment. So you'll want to watch all these little stud holes come through like that, in here, and then these clips will clip back in. You might have to give it a little love tap, like so. Make sure your wire's coming through right here the way it's supposed to. I'm going to give this a little hit of a tap. There's always one that doesn't want to work for you. Just give it a, like that. So what you're looking for is to have all these snaps back up where they're supposed to be. You can see when I put that one on front, now the back one popped out. So we'll give that an extra little hit there. There we go. Now, you can see, especially this one here, this one sometimes is a troublemaker, but the rest of them are all through here, and now we can reattach. Well, we can run the wire back, we can reattach this to the full inner panel. One thing that's just a nice little tip that makes things easier is if you tape this down with some, I'm just using some Gorilla Tape, but duct tape would work just as well. And just tape that wire down so it sits flat like that. It'll make installation a little bit easier. It's not necessary, but I just find it easier to do. And then later when you come back, if you need to reassemble this for any reason or add more lighting, it's nice and tidy. So I just like to have it like that, have it slide out the bottom, and then we can put this back on and run the wire. Okay, I'm going to preliminary route the wire, and since we have two lights on here, we're going to run them both together, both the wires. I'll just keep them together like this and run them together so it's easier. But if you just have the one light, the installation's exactly the same. So with that, let's get this kind of run. I like to just run it down under, and we're going to go up to the side. All right, just run the wires underneath, and I'm just going to run them up that way just to get them out of the way as we slide this piece back in to where it needs to be. Okay, now with everything loose, we're going to slide up there. I like to try to get these bosses and back to poke through first, supporting the bag from underneath, and then carefully, just with a hand screwdriver, I'm going to reassemble this just to get started. And I don't tighten it, I'm just going to put all the screws in loose because it has to snap together similarly to the way the other parts did. Once you get the top one here started in the middle, it makes it a little easier to hold. So I start one down here, I got one started there. Now I'm just going to work my way around down on the bottom. And these are easy to strip out, so you just want to be kind of careful. They're just plastic on plastic here, so. Again, I just get it slightly snug on each one, and I'll go back around and torque them all down. And before I tighten everything up, I'm going to put our hinge locking pieces back in together. All right, I'm going to tighten these up. Being careful not to strip them. So don't use a high torque power one if you're using one. Now I'm just going to go around. All right, now you have everything reconnected here. Now it's time to put on your safety strap. We'll snap this back on, push that in. So that's the installation of the light itself. Now we just got to run the wires, and we're going to run them up kind of up the side and back into the underseat area. Okay, easiest way we found to run these wires is we're going to take out this little button and this button here by just pushing these in. And this whole thing will come out and set them aside because you're going to need to use them, reuse them again. Because the wires are going to go behind there. And you'll end up with that like there. And before we put them back in, you just push them back up like that. And when I reinstall them, I'll show you what we're doing. But now, we just kind of pull this out a little bit so you can get the wires in behind there. Again, I've got 2 lights, so I've got 2 wires. If you have one, you'll only have one to do in here. You want to pull that out and sneak those through in behind all of this and not pinch it. You'll see it'll work its way back there. Down into that crack down there. Stick it down a little bit here. There we go. So it gets in behind. Now they're nice and loose and free. We're going to pull them up, and we're going to take one of our wire ties, and we're going to put a wire tie up in this area to hold these wires, and then these will be run up under through here into the under seat area where it'll plug into the 48,000. I'm also going to put one of these wire keepers right on top of this ledge right here, and to make it easy to get to, I'm just going to slide this out. You just squeeze the tab there and the tab on top, and that'll pop right out and make it a little easier to get to. And then we're going to stick this down right up top there. And run our clip through, get it ready for the wires. And then we're going to take our 2 wires here and run it in behind like that. And just zip tie them down. I'm going to get that started a little bit, and I want to pull these tight enough so that make sure they're not touching the exhaust, but you don't want to also stretch the wires. So just get them snug, tighten them down like that. We'll clip the edge. Clip this back in, just in that hole the way it was. And then we're going to run these wires right up in between the battery, right through here, underneath the frame. Just like that, in behind the panel. And then plug them into the 48,000 wiring harness, and let's see how they look. So because we're running 2 wires with this one, and just as an extra safety, we're going to put one of these little wire keepers right there with a zip tie through it, and that will hold this wire from touching the exhaust. We'll run a zip tie through there, like so. Just clip that end. All right, we've got this put back together. Let's light it up and see how she looks. So that's a great look. Love it. A lot more light on the side, a lot more safety, and a whole lot of style. I'm Ken with Goldstrike. If you need to know more information about this or any of the other parts that you saw on here, go to goldstrike3d.com. We also have a bunch of other videos online here, so just check out the rest of the YouTube page. Thanks for watching. Have a great ride.